Don't mess with me, pork chop. What day is this?
It's February 2nd. Groundhog Day.
You know, I thought it was yesterday.
Oh.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's time for another comic book review on the channel. And today I'm going to talk about Giant-SIZE X-Men FANTOMEX. This is a spoiler review, and I'm definitely going to get into a lot of the story beats and details of this comic book. So if you don't want that, go read the comic and then come back and check out the review afterwards and see if you want to talk about it a little bit with me. I do want to say, bottom line up front, I do highly recommend this comic book. I have been very disappointed with the Giant-SIZE X-Men offering so far. I haven't really thought any of them had a good story relating to the title character. Really, the first one that was even mostly about the title character was the Magneto story. And I don't feel like we really learned anything about Magneto. We just learned at the end that he has a key and Emma Frost has an island. And that's about it. In this one, we definitely get a lot more information about FANTOMEX. Maybe nothing completely new. They certainly tie a few things here and there together that maybe we didn't quite understand before. But at least it is about the title character. It's about perseverance. It's about evolution. And Jonathan Hickman does it very well, along with his co-storyteller, Reis, in this one. Obviously, Reis is the artist, but Hickman and Reis are both credited as the story creators in this comic book. I do want to say before we move into some of the details, if you're enjoying the content right here on Thinking Critical and you have not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you enjoy this review, definitely give us a thumbs up. If you think that I'm way off base on this comic book, give me an enormous thumbs down. Let me know in the comment section below and we can kind of talk about it. I definitely love the feedback and I always appreciate that. So kind of getting into this, the story itself is very simple. We learn the origins of FANTOMEX, where he came from, and then we see him every 10 years try to do the exact same obstacle. He goes on the same mission. He re-enters the world, which is where he was born, and he goes and he tries to save somebody in there, and every time he's essentially turned down. And that is the crux of the story. We get a lot of cool cameos. Hickman and Reis do a lot of things with the story, especially visually, to let you know kind of what's happening. And it makes it a lot more interesting, a lot more enjoyable than I've gotten out of much of Dawn of X lately, and definitely anything in Giant-SIZE X-Men. So like I said, this is a highly recommend for me. I really enjoyed this comic book. And overall, this week has been a million times better than last week's comic books. There's really only one really good comic book last week, and that was The Kill Off. But this week, Batman, Deceased, Giant-SIZE X-Men, Blade Runner 2019 have all been really good. Heck, even Strange Adventures from Tom King wasn't a pretentious pile of garbage. It was actually readable and actually pretty enjoyable. So thankfully this week is up because last week was actually depressing. Now let's kind of get into the book here. I'm going to start out with the art by Reis. It's very abstract in nature throughout the story, especially when we do enter the world. And I am going to specifically talk about that setting here in a few moments. He does a lot of really crazy, mind-bending things. Here we can see he's playing with perspective. Like when FANTOMEX is looking at this character, he's kind of upside down on an island, kind of showing that the rules of our world do not pertain to the world. And I think Reis does a great job portraying that visually throughout this story. When they are not in the world, when I say the world, I'm talking about the world where he was born, and he's actually in the real world, like the one where the X-Men and Krakoa are. I don't know that the art fits quite as well, but it is consistent throughout, and I believe these Giant-SIZE X-Men are supposed to be kind of vehicles for the artist to kind of show their chops and really let their tail feathers fly. So I understand why they didn't use two different artists. It may have been more effective with Reis illustrating the scenes in the world and someone else illustrating the scenes outside of it, but I think it's really good throughout. Not the greatest art in the world, but certainly very, very cool. Got a Bill Sienkiewicz kind of vibe, who certainly has a long history with X-Men, but Reis absolutely has his own style, and he does everything here. He's doing all the line art and the colors, and I think he did a bang-up job, and he does a great job working with Hickman's story, with his script, and really visually demonstrating the ideas that Hickman's trying to get across in this story. So moving on to the story itself, when it opens up, we're in like the nursery of the world, and they have all these babies lined up, and they're getting symbols on their heads and things like that. And they're all supposed to be unique specimens, and their mission will eventually become as like super soldiers against mutant kind, I believe. But it is discovered that these two babies in the factory are actually identical. Every single thing about them is identical. This was an anomaly that's not supposed to happen. So these two scientists here, he says, keep this one and throw this one away. The one that's thrown away, I believe, is FantomX, and the one that's kept, we are going to talk about a little bit later. And that's kind of the origin of FantomX. He is born in the world factory, this laboratory, and he is discarded because he's not wanted, because he is identical in every way to another baby that was created. A very interesting origin story for the character, not ever explored again. Just as far as where he came from, we just explored going back. As the story moves along, like I said, every 10 years, FantomX joins up with a team of mercenaries or hired help, and they go and they infiltrate the world because he wants to go find that character, the one that stayed behind. He was the one that was thrown out. The one that stayed behind, he wants to go confront him and try and save him. And we get some awesome cameos here. It's one of the more enjoyable parts of the story. The first time he goes to raid the world, it's with Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos, and they go in there and you see all these really weird things that are protecting the world. There are a lot of robots and stuff like that, and it's pretty cool. And he's unsuccessful. 10 years later, he hires up with the Hellfire Corporation, like their inner circle, and they go to infiltrate it. Same thing happens, but a little bit changes. And then the third time, he hires up a group called the Humungonauts. Never heard of them myself. I'm not sure if they've ever actually been in Marvel Comics. I'm going to think not, because none of these guys made it. But you have like a low-rent version of Deadpool. I believe he's called Emotipool. There's another character called Red Eye. There's Rustbot that's kind of reminiscent of a rusted-out War Machine. We also got Mohawk Person, that lady on the left. I thought that was a great name. Really good names for these characters. I kind of wish Hickman would do a giant-size X-Men Humungonauts comic book. I would definitely be for that because I want to learn more about this team. They look so weird, and they have really goofy names. And when they infiltrate, the same thing happens, except, like I said, they all die. None of them make it back. And then he does infiltrate it a fourth time, and that's when we kind of start getting into more newer characters within the X-Men. He joins up with Wolverine and Cyclops. They're at a bar drinking up, kind of talking about the plan and what the deal is. And Cyclops can't handle his alcohol. He's a lightweight. He passes out. But eventually Wolverine and Cyclops, they're back to full health. They go in and they storm the compound once again with FantomX. And once again, they see all these weird, crazy things that are going on. But I think this is all about the perseverance of FantomX, wanting to go back to kind of where he came, maybe learn about why they discarded him, why he wasn't wanted in favor of the other character, which he does meet up with every single time. And it's a very interesting take on the character. I really liked the movie Groundhog Day, so I did like seeing him kind of experience this event, this mission that he goes on every 10 years with all these different teams. The cameos made it a lot more fun to read, just to see him interact with these characters. Obviously the highlight being here, Wolverine and Cyclops, two stalwarts with the X-Men. Really cool stuff and a lot of fun. Now, I do want to talk about while he's in the world, I think what the world represents within this story and within Dawn of X, kind of tying into House of X Power of 10, is evolution. Every time they go in there, the defenses have changed within the world. The robots are more sophisticated. They've gotten bigger. There's new things that are defending the world from the outside invaders because they're not supposed to be there, even though FantomX is technically from there. And every time he goes in there, he's looking for this one character who I presume is his identical twin that was kept while he was discarded. And this is confirmed that this is Weapon 15. So FantomX and Weapon 15 are identical twins. He goes in, and the first time he discovers him, he's a little boy. And we are told kind of in the intro that the world does not conform to to time the way the outside world does. But what is interesting is FantomX never seems to get older either. Whereas the characters within the world seem to age. Here, the second time he meets him, obviously he's a younger man. The fourth time he meets him, he's in that suit. He's fully like mechanized. Is he even a man anymore? Is he Darth Vader? He's certainly some type of machine. He's powered by electricity, things like that. And it's all about evolution. And I think that's how this kind of relates to or ties into all this stuff from House of X, Powers of 10, Dawn of X, is evolution. We know that the greatest threat to mutants is technological evolution that the humans harness to eventually destroy them. And the world certainly represents all of that. And they do tie it into some of the other giant-size X-Men issues, specifically Storm. At the very end of the book, he's essentially recruited by the X-Men on Krakoa to join them to go infiltrate the world, because that's where they can find the cure for Storm. We did learn that Storm was infected by the techno-organic virus in the giant-size X-Men Jean Grey, Emma Frost comic book. So these are kind of starting to tie together. In the Nightcrawler giant size, they also discovered another character that had been touched by the techno-organic virus. And I remember seeing Warlock in there. He certainly has something to do with that. So these are kind of tying together, even though I assume that these were kind of like character explorations or maybe one-shot stories that really flesh out a character or tell you something important about their life. That never really happened until this one. I think we learned a lot of good information about Fantomex. If you're not really familiar with him, you will learn a lot of information about Fantomex. And that kind of wraps up basically what I have to say about the comic book. Like I said, there's not a lot to talk about here because it is the same event happening over and over, but we see the evolution of the world as well as Weapon 15 as it's kind of going along. There are a lot of questions here that remain. I thought this story would kind of be about how Fantomex felt about Charles Xavier stealing his body. We know that the Charles Xavier in House of X, Powers of 10 in the early days of Dawn of X is Charles Xavier in Fantomex's body. And when he's assassinated, he's essentially resurrected back into his own body. I assume this version of Fantomex is resurrected after that. That is not confirmed, obviously, in this comic book. That was something I was kind of expecting. That's what I thought this would be addressing or exploring. Never talks about any of that, or how Fantomex feels about someone else holding his body for so long and kind of stealing it from him. A lot of interesting ways to go here. Fantomex is not like my favorite character, but if you're interested in learning more about Fantomex and you've never read Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force run, I highly recommend it. That is an absolute bonkers balls out comic book series, and Fantomex is front and center on that one, and he's really cool. I think that's the only time the character is really being utilized to his fullest, and I hope that's kind of the vein that Jonathan Hickman uses him within Dawn of X moving forward. Nothing but really nice things to say about this comic book. I've been pretty down on Dawn of X as of late. Not a lot of great comic books coming out. This certainly bucks the trend. This is really good. Definitely bucks the trend of just boring, pointless, giant-size X-Men comics that felt like an enormous waste of money. This is definitely worth your money. Some really cool, bonkers, wild art in there. Really interesting story, especially if you like the movie Groundhog Day. You're probably going to like this. I think if you like Fantomex, you'll definitely like this. You'll see him interact with a lot of different characters. Like I said, lots of cool cameos, lots of fun to be had in here. Huge thumbs up to Jonathan Hickman. I thought maybe he lost it, but he certainly still has something. And I hope he does more comic books in the vein of this. And there are a lot of hanging plot points left by this comic book. And it does feel like that's what Jonathan Hickman's doing. He's creating a lot of plot points, a lot of hanging storylines that need to be addressed that he just isn't tying up or even addressing at all kind of lately. So hopefully he'll start, paying some of this stuff off, because it feels like there's just a lot of stuff out there hanging, but there's not a lot of conclusions or addressing any of it. Hopefully that happens in the future. Highly recommend this comic book. A lot of fun. I think you'll enjoy it. It's definitely worth the money. The first time I can say that really about a giant-size X-Men comic, although the first one with the art by Russell Dowderman was a very well-illustrated comic book. Like, great art in that one as well. So that's my review of giant-size X-Men Fantomex. Thank you so much for joining me, and definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.